if you're 7 to 15 people, you know everybody, you sit next to each other, you can almost hear anyone speaking. So you have an extremely strong influence on a day-to-day basis with the way that you work, the way that you show what you're expecting in this company, the way that you interact with each other. So it's very natural, fluent in a way. And then between 15 and 30 to maybe 40 people, you start having team leads, as you said. So actually your impact is not as direct anymore. You don't know the problems of each person individually anymore. You need to work more on structures, more on having team meetings and town halls or whatever you want to call it, and put it into a different structure and invest much more time into your management team actually, voicing it the same sort of way, voicing the same values, the same vision, and working on that. So that's a lot of cultural work that doesn't bring any super short-term success, but it's so important for the longer term. And as the company grows, this just becomes more and more structured, more and more institutionalized as a company. Or, well, you have to do that. It just doesn't magically happen, but that becomes your job, right? If you're in the management of the company, because at some point there's maybe 4, 5, 6 different layers, depending on the teams and the companies. They become individual cells that work on other things. So then it's really much more working on the vision, the guidelines where you want to go, the values and the behavior that you want to have versus the one that you don't want to have, and then really living by that and as an example, and also getting everyone in the company to talk about it as much as possible, to make decisions based on the vision, based on the values, but these sort of things. It's all about coaching at some point, coaching and teaching. Someone once told me, or I read it somewhere, I'm not sure anymore. They said, as the company becomes bigger, your main job becomes hiring and HR, right? So that's sort of the feeling that I have by now. It's not, I'm also sales a lot still, but I think HR and cultural development becomes so important.
Like we're on a very similar, in a very similar stage, probably with less learnings than Laurent. So we did lots of learnings on that. I think that's for me personally one of the biggest learnings, how communication has to evolve with more and more people. Like it has to evolve so quickly. So many times we change the way of how we get the team informed multiple times. And I think Laurent, you've mostly focused on the maybe more the top-down perspective. What I also realized is like how the perception of the individual team member changes a lot with the size of the company. And at first, exactly at the same position where you said before, like from basically 20 to 50, the team members suddenly feel like they haven't been informed about things because they suddenly don't know everything that's happening. So you kind of get that fear of missing out. And we at some point started to call that phantom stress, because people had the impression they were not informed about something which might affect them at some point. And then they already started working on it because they were afraid that they otherwise missed it and were too late. So it's very difficult, or it was a challenge for us to move from basically having everybody informed at all the times to consciously informing the people that need to know at the specific point in time, and making sure that the others have the trust that they will be informed at the right point in time. For us, a big change that came, like we moved to town halls. At the moment, we have quarterly town halls with the whole company, where we very much focus on vision and strategy. It's very important to communicate the same things over and over again. Whenever we have critical topics to communicate, also there, some things work better, some less good. Overall, I think it's important to communicate so quickly and early before you have any rumors starting basically in the company. And for critical topics, we started to have Q&A sessions where you could send questions up front, or we also put together potential questions that people would have, doubts, worries, etc., so that we could answer them in these Q&A sessions, well prepared also. And with the leadership team, we have monthly meetings to ensure that then our leadership team passes this on to the team itself. But that's for sure the most challenging part. Get like a equally trustworthy communication of a leader to the team as how we would communicate it to the team members. I think that's a big challenge of basically having that like middle management layer and make sure that they would communicate with the same passion and with the same motivation as the founders would communicate.